let me explain something. While we're using grade 2, 3, and 4 literature, the majority of bands in Florida play grades 2, 3s, and 4s. That's just, come on, let's be honest. When I go to a concert MPA and I look at the program, only the last couple bands of each day plays 5s and 6s. So we're trying to use literature that you guys can really relate to. We're so glad that you're here. Without further ado, though, I'm going to do some Kelly Dorsey, and I think she's doing music expression. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Try not to do that too many times. So yeah, put your seatbelts on because we have a lot to cover in a very quick amount of time. So here's what we're talking about, musical effect. This is what you have in that third block on your judge's sheet. Expression, shaping, line, style, interpretation, phrasing, tempo, and dynamic expression. So let's talk about what is expression. You need to know things like what are the implied effects of the composition. So there's all kinds of things there. I'm not going to read it all to you. You guys can read, but you've got to make these kinds of decisions because every piece that you play is a little bit different. And then what is the emotional character of the composition? There are drive. Does it drive? Are there interruptions? Are there anticipations, pauses, sighs? I highly recommend this book, From Skill to Art by Bobby Adams, if you can't read that, and it is in the handout. And he talks about a lot of that stuff. But at the bottom, that statement, you have to play what's not written on the page. We spend so much time talking to our kids about playing notes and rhythms and dynamics. Okay, but what about the rest of it? That's the thing, and that's why what we do in critical thinking is so important, especially if you're doing Marzano or any of that other kind of stuff. I mean, you just show your principal, well, look, this is what they're having to figure out that's not written on the page. And that's just crucial. So, once we decide how we want to do that, now we're going to talk about how we shape lines. These are beginning, introductory concepts. And I don't care if it's middle school or high school. If they don't understand this and everything they're playing is flatline, this is where you need to start. So, general rules. There's an exception to every rule. Agreed? Okay, when the notes go up, the music gets louder. When the notes go down, the music gets softer. Let me hear just the clarinets at the very beginning. We're doing Ancient Flower. And I just want you to play it straight. Just notes, rhythms, nothing else, right? 2 and 3. Okay, real pretty melody, right? Now, we're going to follow that up-down rule. That's what I call it with my kids. Up-down rule. When the notes go up, we're going to get louder. When the notes go down, we're going to get softer. And 2, 3. Push it, push it. Okay, now you can let them get too soft. And Alex is going to talk a lot about performance fundamentals that have to be in place before you're doing this kind of thing. So you never want to let them play softer than they can with a good sound or louder than they can with a good sound. But the other thing that we're going to talk about, if you don't get it right off, do it again. So let's make more out of it, right? 2 and 3. Push. And arrive. Okay, so they made more out of that line. Did you hear that? Something else that I hope that you heard, their intonation and their tone quality got better because they were listening to each other and they're putting more air through the horn. And everything has to go faster and they had to make more decisions. Now there's another thing there that Bobby Adams talks about a lot. He and I had a very long conversation about this. Don't let notes decay. We're looking at measure 26 here. When you have a long note, and I could have done it there in that melody that we just did, any kind of long note, Unless there's a decrescendo written, my goodness, don't let it fall and lose energy. It's all about energy in a piece. It has to have forward motion. Most notes are always going somewhere or they're coming away from something. And if it's just dying there, we're not doing our job. And that's what the kids have to decide. So let's push a phrase. Let's look at measure 26, just our half note people. So it's oboes, first clarinets. Go. Right on the downbeat. Ready? Just nice and even. Okay, now we're going to take that long note, we're going to push that, right? Let it die. Push. Okay, so you hear how there's a little bit more energy of what they're doing. All right, so that's things like that are what you need to be looking for in these. So now there's so many things. I mean, I think all three of us could talk to you for hours about going through all of these pieces. But shaping of line, you've got to know where you're going in a phrase, and note weighting is a big part of that. I think Paul made reference in the last one about note grouping. That's a great book. I highly recommend that. But now we're talking about note weighting. General rule: the lighter the note, the shorter the note, the lighter it is. The heavier the note, the longer the note, the heavier it is. I just didn't quite say that right. So we've got to find where we're going to go with that, and that's where we're going. We're going to find a climax, an arrival point in each phrase, and you're looking for those heavy notes to kind of help dictate that a little bit. And eventually the kids start making those decisions on their own, okay? And as a general rule, in 3/4 time signature, the weight is almost always on the downbeat. How would we describe that with our kids? Boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick, right? There's the weight, boom. Now, do we want them to accent it? No, not necessarily. It could be a lyrical line, and we still have to find that weight. Okay, I think I already kind of covered all of that. So, let's talk about the roles. The kids have to understand what their role is. And I even talked about this a little bit in the first clinic. So, the melody shall always be heard. Say that, kids. The melody shall always be heard. Okay, everybody repeat after me. The melody shall always be heard.
The melody shall always be heard.
The harmony shall always be heard, but never, never cover the melody.
The harmony shall always be heard, but never, never cover the melody.
The rhythm shall be felt.
The rhythm shall be felt.
The long notes shall never cover the rhythm.
The long notes shall never cover the rhythm.
Okay, and these are in our handouts, and you feel free to print these out. If once the kids understand what their role is, then they can determine where they fit in. So we're looking at, let's see here, measure 45. One of the things that I like to do, we just sort of make a game out of it. I'll say, okay, everybody that has melody, play. So we're going to start at 45. Only when you have melody do you play. When you don't have melody, don't play. Get out of the way. All right, right on it with a pickup. 2 and 3. Follow the line. And somebody else comes in. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We pass that around. Sometimes you have to go, wait, who did we miss in that melody? Okay, and those are kind of fun things to do. They go, oh, I didn't realize that so-and-so had the melody there. And I'll do it from the beginning of the song all the way to the end of the song. And I have everybody write in their music who has the melody at each section so that they know, okay, that's not me, that's the trumpets. I need to get down out of the way. Then I'll do the same thing with the rhythm, or I'll do the same thing with the harmony or an ostinato part. Any kind of roles that are determined in there, play it all the way through. And what they'll find is that sometimes I have the melody for about 3 beats, and then I don't, but I'm playing for 6 measures. So they have to understand that, okay, well, I'm maybe starting here at measure 25, but at measure 28, I've got 2 beats of this melody. I need to bring that out, and then I'm going to get back out of the way again. So they have to know where that is. So once they do that, they've defined their role, then the other thing that we're going to do is I'll say, everybody play your part together, match those tones, okay? So let me have that melody again. Raise your hand real high if you have the melody at 45. Real high, and then I say, look around the room, find out who else has that. All right, so we have saxes, we have flutes, we have first trumpets. So now I like the tucking in method as far as matching tones, but I also will say, let's see, flutes your saxes, saxes your trumpets, trumpets your flutes. You have to sound just like them. This works with 6th graders, by the way, on a daily basis, and boy, does that make a difference in your beginning mid sound. So let's do that now. You match that section. Here we go, 2, 3. Couple of things happened. Their pitch got better, their blend got better. I really didn't conduct them very much. I like to get out of the way and let them do that and make those musical decisions. Good job, guys. All right, now when there were moving parts, I kind of talked about that. Always bring moving parts out. No, I didn't write that down, but we may have time. Well, we might get back to that a little bit later. There are I know there's little places in here where somebody has just a lot of sustained notes, and then for 2 beats they have a few 8th notes. Well, that's the moving part. And so when you're doing a chorale or any kind of warm-up, and I would use a piece like this even as a warm-up. Let's start it. And I use these pieces to say, let's talk about solo and ensemble. When you're in a small ensemble, you have to communicate. The judges always say, hey, are you looking at each other? Are you breathing together? How are you bringing each other in? Same thing with a soloist. We have to teach them to look at their accompanist. Don't just leave them hanging out to dry. How many times has a kid started a new section and the accompanist is going, oh, they've already started. They haven't gotten a chance to try that. So it's communication, eye contact. And so I'll say, all right, well, we're going to have whoever comes at the beginning, they're going to breathe, and the whole band will start. Ian Schwint does that, and he does that with his honor bands, and it's amazing. He'll pick a piece, and he will never stand on the podium not one time, and they will perform it. And it's great. But what it's teaching them is to listen to each other, balance, blend, but bringing moving parts out and getting out of the way when you don't have that. So when you're talking about phrasing, that's a part of that box as well. You've got to decide, when are you going to release phrases, when are you going to pass it off? A lot of low brass is really bad about chopping phrases up. The melody kids will usually get it before the other kids will, because that's what you're used to hearing. But I always tell my kids, well, we'll talk about that for a second. Dovetailing of lines is when you have one group playing and then another group's going to come in. You've got to pass that baton off. Don't let them drop that baton. A little bit of carryover. You can also do that when you're working out technical passages, like if the clarinets or flutes or somebody has a whole bunch of 16ths and you say, okay, you're going to play group 1, you're going to play group 2, but you're going to play 1 E and a 2, they're going to play 2 E and a 1, 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2, and they're dovetailing, they're coming in together. Okay? Now, I always tell my kids, don't breathe after a long note or over a bar line unless it's the end of the phrase. Our school colors are purple and gold, so they go, well, when do we breathe? I said, don't just show school spirit and turn purple. I don't want to hear you breathe. Lots of fun with that. Okay, and I know I'm flying through these things, and I apologize that we don't have enough time, but tempo, play the tempo that your band can play well. Please do not try to stick to a tempo marking on the score if it is too fast for your band. It is okay to slow things down just a little bit. Now, if we're talking about 20 beats a minute difference, you might want to look at a different piece. But it is okay to slow things down. How many times have you heard a recording of a march, and this band is playing it this fast, and this band is playing it this fast? British marches, you hear that a lot. We have all kinds of different interpretations of the tempo. So you can do that. Don't play slow pieces too slow. You would die, and your kids will fall out of their seat, and your audience will go to sleep. If it's too slow and they can't handle it, you're going to have all kinds of problems. You're going to have intonation problems. You're going to have energy problems. There's balance problems. Kids can't handle it. Rubato. Don't be afraid to use this. Let's look at 26 for everybody. 26 for everybody. Rubato, I love it. I love to play with this. I'll tell the kids we're going to play a game. It's a watch game. Look, even at the high school, they like games. All right, you don't have to be a middle school director to play games with your kids. But rubato, I say, I'm going to do this a different tempo every time, and you have to watch me and stay with me. But if we're starting, if you have a score, we're starting at measure 26, and what I'm looking at around 30, 31, there are no tempo changes in this whatsoever. So let's play it exactly the way it's written. Ready? Everybody, 26, ready, and. You don't know what I'm going to do you? They don't know what I'm going to do. Now push it here. Watch and let's try it again. I'm telling you, I might do it different again, so hang on, ready? This is my favorite part of the rehearsal. I love doing this stuff to the kids. They do too. They do too. But I would definitely put some, just play with it a little bit and decide what sounds better. Okay, let's see, I gotta move it along. Dynamics. Dynamics is not a straight line, it's a range. Okay, everybody thinks, my band's gotta play soft here, so we're all gonna play soft here. Now they're loud, we're all gonna play loud here. No, we just talked about that up-down rule, right? Well, here we go. Forte, here's your up-down rule. We gotta move those lines. When the notes go up, it gets louder. When they get down, it gets softer. Don't be afraid to do that within every dynamic. Listen to multiple recordings until you learn what it is that you want out of that piece. Study your scores ahead of time before you start working on things. Make your marks early. And Paul talked about this a lot. Record your ensemble daily. you will find that if you've got that sound in your head ahead of time, and you are constantly checking yourself on good recordings, and then you listen to the recordings of your band, you're going to hear differences. Don't settle for what they're doing, because they can do it. I learned by accident one day, many years ago, we were doing a piece with a video that I had made, and I had to listen to that video many, many times to get the timing right on the measures so that we stayed with it correctly. And I had listened to that recording so many times, I found that when I was rehearsing my band, wow, they sounded really good on that piece because I made them sound exactly what I had been hearing multiple times a day. Okay? So it really kept me in check. When we're rehearsing a piece, you think, hey, that sounded pretty good. Well, yeah, compared to where you started, but not where you need to be. Let them play without a conductor. That's so important. We talked about that. However you choose to interpret it, it's got to be, you have to have your players be consistent. We talk about vertical alignment a lot, which is not in this box, but they have to start together, they have to stop together, and the note length is crucial. Articulations being the same. If the first horn player is playing long notes and the first trumpet player is playing short notes, and they're both supposed to be either accented or staccato, well, we have a problem. Get on the kids' level to explain it until they understand it. Make sure they're doing what you told them. Don't just say, I told them that. You know, bring people in to come in and tell your kids the same thing you've been telling them for a month. And don't be offended when they do it. Don't be embarrassed when they do. Because that's what you want them to do. How many times did your parents tell you something and you're like, yeah, whatever. And then all of a sudden somebody that you respected came in and said the same thing. You're like, really? That's a great idea. And your parents are like, oh. Have your kids done that to you? Your own children? Yes. It's the same thing. And when I learned real quick to get over that. I'd bring Dean Castles in to come work my band. And he'd tell him this stuff, of course, for several years. I was just learning a lot when he came in. But then it was like, I've been telling him that, told him that. He says, you didn't tell them enough. Keep telling them until they get it. Okay, so I'm going to move it along and I'm going to pass it over to Alex. But look, I'm just going to tell you, the most important thing is sound and make music. If you make music, you can get away with a multitude of sins. Have great sound and make music.